here on Scarpad with yet another thrilling episode of Link and Scarpad's got issues, and we still do. We haven't solved them yet. I don't think we ever will. And today we have yet another exciting episode for you of the Rick Remender Love, of God Issues. And let's bring our co-host with the most. It's his pick. He picked this one. Link, how you doing?
What's going on, Scarpad? And it's okay to call this a Rick Remender Love Fest. I'm okay with that.
It's a love fest. Uncanny X-Men Volume 1 from 2010.
X-Force.
X-Force.
Oh, it's all right. It's all right.
X-Force. Uncanny X-Force, written by Rick Remender, Volume 1. It was 4 issues.
Yes.
4 issues.
I thought that'd be a nice change of pace, after last show we did New Burn, which was 8 issues. So,
It didn't seem like 8 issues.
No, not at all.
Like 12 issues. No, it didn't. It felt like 4 issues. Felt like 4 issues with all the stuff, all the ads taken out. And joining us for the first time at episode 3, we have Stu from DrDoomsFanClub. How you doing, Stu?
Thank you for having me, fellas. Very excited.
Oh, of course, brother.
I tell you why I wanted to bring you in here, because you two guys are going to probably do most of the talking. So let me back up a little bit and preface this. Okay. What did I do? How did I get into comics? Well, I got into comics in the late 70s. I can tell you why. In the late 70s, because I was a Star Trek fan, I started reading Gold Key Star Treks. I loved those. Very pulpy science fiction. And then Star Trek The Motion Picture came out, and Marvel was doing the adaptation of Star Trek The Motion Picture. Then they went on to do a series. After that, DC did it. And that's how I kind of got into comics around Star Trek. But in between all that, in the late 70s, I was a pretty big Marvel guy. I read, especially Incredible Hulk, loved it, and the Avengers. So when I was reading things, I was reading Avengers, Incredible Hulk, probably because the Avengers, you read that and you get fucking everything. Everybody's in the Avengers. You always see all the characters in the Avengers. So I got into that. Yeah. Then read too much X-Men. And then by the time the X-Men really got big, which was the 80s, I was a DC guy. I went from that to a DC guy. So I was doing all the DC stuff, and I really wasn't doing a lot of Marvel. Well, now I'm almost more of an indie guy, although I do, dip my fingers and toes and other extremities into Marvel. And because, of course, the Marvel Universe, I'm kind of aware with it, but I'm not a Marvel guru. So this book, I started reading it, Uncanny X-Force. Of course, you recognize the characters, some of them. You recognize Wolverine. You recognize Deadpool. And you have these other 2 characters, Psylocke, I believe it was, who is Captain Britain for some reason. Name is Psylocke. It's Captain Britain, no Betty Brant, isn't it? In the 70s?
Braddock.
Betty Braddock, yeah. And then you had the other guy. Who's the other dude? The guy that looks like Diabolic.
Archangel and Phantom X.
Phantom X. I think you might have.
Phantom X.
Are you?
Phantom X looked like Diabolic from the Italian movie Doctor for Danger Diabolic.
I think he was actually based off of that, to be honest, if I'm not mistaken.
So anyways, so you had that, and you had that Archangel, okay? Which, now Archangel, is that the same character that was in the Legion TV series?
No. Yeah, he's one of the 5 original X-Men, but he started off with Feather Wings. Okay.
So we get these guys, and basically, so they're leading a mission to kill Apocalypse, so I'm aware of. And that's where we get going. So I read the book. Yeah, I read the book. I enjoyed it. I think the stuff I enjoyed mostly with it was when my favorite issue, and we'll get into that, was issue 3. And that's because we start getting into the whole 4 horsemen of the apocalypse stuff, which, of course, I've seen in other books, but I love it here. They go into depth of each one of the characters and their origin, from the Confederacy to everything else that went on.
Rome and shit.
And that started kind of like in issue 2 and then went through issue 3. And then we get the character of Apocalypse, who's now a boy. Now, I've seen this before in other
stuff.
A clone. Okay, a boy. Well, he's a boy. He's a kid.
No, yeah.
So we get into that Minority Report type of thing of predestination of, he is a kid. He's not his evil self yet, but he will be eventually. So do you want to kill Hitler when he's young? And that's kind of an interesting theme of the book.
Well,
But when
got
we go
like
ahead,
the Minority Report element like that, like
right?
I don't know. It's
Is it predetermined?
yeah,
But since
like precognition or whatever what they call them, the
Yeah.
precogs.
Yeah.
But I think
So-
it's very that whole like, does society affect you or is it how you're raised type of
Right.
theme is real heavy and prevalent through the first arc
agreed.
for sure. Yeah.
And then,
And
of
I
course-
think to what you were saying, Dave, I think with like missing even with the Claremontian stuff, I know Remender said like his three big influences for this were Claremont, Miller, and Morrison, but this was a book for 90s babies, I feel like, with all the Age of Apocalypse stuff that he threw in
Oh
there
yeah,
and pulled from. I feel like this was a
love letter,
a
or
comic that
like,
really, really appeals to kids like me who are reading Age of Apocalypse and that whole thing back in 95, 96 in that era.
And I think the one thing, the book has, I think the reason why Deadpool's in it, and so I have a love-hate relationship with this, is the superhero banter. It's got lots of superhero banter.
It's well written, and it
is well written, but then to me, sometimes the superhero banter can get in the way of the story. I don't think it did here, but they had a lot of that banter. But anyways,
I agree with you.
And I think really that's why Deadpool was here more or less, because if Deadpool wasn't here, you wouldn't have half the banter that you would have. You'd have some with Wolverine.
Phantom X is
Right.
pretty banterish character, but
Right.
he's the newest.
But
Yeah, and Wolverine has his moments too.
But why do you get going? How do you discover this book and talk about it a little bit? I guess.
Do you wanna introduce or?
Oh, sure. How did I first discover Rick? I think this might have been my first foray into Remender.
Nice.
But I don't remember exactly how I came about it. I think it was some random recommendation, but I read the first arc, and from there I just ate the whole thing up, man. I loved it, and from there I really went to explore all his other creator-owned stuff. At the time, I think, I don't know what all had come out, but I don't really have a definitive memory about how I discovered it or whatever like that. But I just remember it being one of the very first books that really set me off on the Remender catalog. I don't know. That's how I came. How about you?
That's dope. I was pretty much a weekly Wednesday warrior when this was coming out. This was coming off like the tail end of this event called like Second Coming, and this all stems from like House of M and how they reduced the mutant population to like 5% throughout the entire world. Like every mutant in the entire world like lost their powers pretty much. And all these stories kind of dealt with like the ramifications of that. And so this was like a sequel to a series called X-Force, which we've all heard of. But this incarnation of X-Force was similar to Uncanny, where they had like the black suits, and, you know, they were killers. It was like Wolverine, Wolfsbane, Warpath, Archangel, and they might have had other people pop up here and there, like newer people, but they aren't worth mentioning. But so I was a Remender fan already when this was coming out, because this shit, I really enjoyed what he had done with like Punisher, which came out like maybe a year before this. And so when he was coming onto the X-Men stuff, I was like really pumped. I was really excited. And so based off what I had already seen on the opening arc of Punisher, which was Jerome Pena on art and Rick Remender, I was already excited for this. So yeah, coming into this, I was just pumped, and it was amazing. Like Stu was saying, this is a love letter to like 90s X-Men comics. There's a lot of references to like stuff that happened in the 90s. You know, even to the relationships like Psylocke and Warren. That was like something that was a big focus. Their relationship was like it was like Rogue and Gambit, Psylocke and Archangel, Jean and Cyclops. Those were like the three big relationships in X-Men in the 90s. So this was like and at this point they had not been a couple for about 10 years, because I remember when Claremont came back onto the X-Men in 2000s, like early 2000, Psylocke had started a relationship. She left archangel for this dude named Thunderbird, who's not the original Thunderbird. To any X-Men fans out there, totally different dude. But yeah, and this came out like the tail end of like 2010, so it had been about 10 years since they had been a couple. So a lot of references to the 90s. Big love letter to the X-Men at large, I feel, but in particular the 90s.
Well, in this case,
for sure. So do you have this collected in single? You have this collected in single issues, more or less.
This run, yes.
Wow, that's awesome. That's
This is a big run too. It's 50 issues, so it's a pretty big run.
37.
Yeah, it ran forever.
Okay, I thought the first set was 50 and the second one was 37. No,
I think you're thinking of volume 2, which wasn't written by Remender. It was Sam Humphries and
but
which it's not as good.
But here we got that Psylocke character. The Psylocke character is forcing some evil force in
Archangel
to stay down with something that feeds into this book a lot. That she's trying.
Archangel was they're trying to hunt down Apocalypse, and Archangel at one point was one of the 4 horsemen of Apocalypse. It was Death, I believe he was the Angel of Death, and so that's how I kind of like the relationships in this book, because like you wouldn't think at first like a Wolverine on a team with like Archangel really makes sense, but they have a lot of similarities in terms of trying to keep the Beast at bay. Like, Wolverine understands trying to keep his berserker nature at bay and trying to fight against the urge to just be primal. So Archangel kind of deals with that a lot too, because I guess when he like unleashes the transformation, it kind of influences him, that makes him want to be more vicious. So he's got to try to keep that back. And I guess it's kind of, he was like kind of programmed in a way too. And so Psylocke with her powers kind of puts mental blocks on that to make him more stable.
Yeah, I thought it was a great way to open the whole thing, was with those two, where she's trying to basically go into his mind and separate the two. You got the I would go like a couple more pages, but after this one.
Yeah.
But yeah, like how she's
right here.
How he's you got the two the angel or the Apocalypse Archangel had him pinned up against the wall, and he's trying to
just torture his ass, tell him that, break him.
Yeah, torture his ass and tell him that it's over with, that stop being a naive little child and stuff like that. So she's she's putting great risk to herself and to Warren, kind of, because it's only when she's around that Warren can kind of tamper things down, or kind of scrub the stain of Apocalypse off of his soul. When Betsy's not around, he's kind of a loose cannon, which we'll see later on in the series. The worst nightmare comes to life, but it was still I was really impressed just the way he chose to lead with Psylocke and Warren starting off.
Right?
Archangel is kind of like a tossed around character, the Brady Rich kid. He's kind of been kicked around. So for him to kind of, I don't know. That's just the characterization across the board in this series.
No, yeah, I totally agree with that. He felt like he gave him personality. Like he said, he's like always been tossed around. He's kind of just there to like fund the X-Men and their shit, which they acknowledge in this. But he gave him a real personality, and you never would thought like the Archangel being like one of the leads or the leader of a X book. This though did remind me of Joe Casey's, I believe it was Joe Casey's brief run on Uncanny X-Men in the early 2000s, like when Morrison came on. It was like Wolverine, Angel, Iceman, and Chamber, and then they picked up some chick named Stacy X. But they didn't really, even then on that small team, he was still like a background character. He wasn't given a personality like he was in this book.
This dude kind of reminds me of the kid that's on the Umbrella Academy.
Oh, number 6 or whatever.
He was number 5. He's got number 5 vibes for sure.
Number 5 and 6.
Yeah,
some beautiful artwork.
Very much so.
I love this panel right here in particular.
Where they're going through the thing he set up with the old
It's called Cavern X, which I thought was dope as hell. It's like
it's kind of like his Batcave.
X-Men's version of the Batcave. Yes, like all these history relics that really cool. And right here, you're just getting caught up with so many different eras of X-Men from like the start to like the most, not the most current, but at the time, you know, these are like staple teams. Baseball.
Yeah, can we go back to the very first page, like the very first opener with Deadpool and the that slime green waterfall?
Yes,
I just wanted to show, like, just straight off the bat how Opeña is opening. I mean, the artwork right away just takes your breath away. It's fantastic.
I think I just crashed it.
Sorry, bud. But yeah, I mean, I just thought from, you know, the first page it's just this dramatic splash of
epic, just
Deadpool diving down this slime green waterfall, he's basically on a recon mission for Archangel, trying to sniff out. They got a hint that Apocalypse might be at this. Where are they on? What are they on, Mars?
The moon. They're on the moon.
Yeah, the moon base.
Okay. Yeah, so he's trying to follow down a lead, which he does a little too well, unfortunately. But yeah, it was. I don't know. It's just such a great.
Oh, here we go.
Can you get it?
Colors are so fantastic. I love it.
I'll let you get it because I kind of crashed it.
And there's something about X-Force with the red eyes that just does it for me. I don't know what it is.
Yeah, the red and the black. The
color palette is just great. Yeah, it's just very cool. And then seeing War kind of just like come up out of nowhere and split Deadpool's head open.
Deadpool just standing there, takes the dive.
Yes, there we go. It's just amazing, man. Just a great opening panel. I mean, it gets no better.
Yeah.
Honestly.
I love the interpretations when we get later in with the Four Horsemen, too. I like the backstories they gave on each one, especially the dude from the Roman era that she has to go back in and become his concubine. What happens there?
Well, that's because remember, Phantom X plants the illusion that in his head that he's in love with her.
Right. Yeah, that's right.
It's a really.
Did she have to do the dirty? Because it never really showed it.
No. She jammed him in the head with a psychic. There
you go.
What were you gonna say, Stu?
But Phantom X, in some ways, like I feel like we were talking about, Link, like Remender explored his power set better than Morrison did. I think in some ways. He's like, especially in this first arc, he's really like saves the day more than once with these misdirections, like these illusions that he puts on the Four Horsemen of the Apocalypse. And I just thought that was something that we kind of saw in bits and pieces with Morrison and his run, but it just, I don't know, he was just so much more fleshed out as a character here. I was really
even personality. I would say that Remender did more character work, in particular with definitely Warren and Phantom X, what we were talking about, Stu. But I feel like with Phantom X, he was kind of like a cool gimmicky character in Morrison's X-Men, which I loved. That's why I found, he was introduced there and I loved him in that. But he's really made into like an enduring asshole in this run instead of just being an asshole. Like they showed another side to Phantom X instead of him just being some thief who speaks with a fake French accent, So yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And Deadpool, like as jokey as he is, Deadpool's kind of like the moral center of this. He's like, in the end, he's the one who, not to spoil anything for anybody, but he's the one who convinces Kid Apocalypse not to break bad. He's the one who's kind of out. He's the only one who's really outraged after this first arc at the fact of what happened at the end of it.
Well, I thought he was kind of restrained here. I mean, as jokey as he is, I thought he was dialed down a bit,
which I enjoyed. I appreciate it. He a character like him, he still had the quips and the just being the zany out there, in the face of danger. He's still cracking jokes. But it was dialed down, like you said, and it made him more palpable as a character to me.
Yeah, was this pre Ryan Reynolds Deadpool? Like,
I would think so. Yeah.
Well,
it was 2011, so
But Ryan Reynolds played Deadpool in X-Men Origins, which came out with Wolverine, which came out in 2009.
I just mean like the jokey, like how he established him, in the cultural zeitgeist as a jokey. You know what I mean? Like,
funny
I didn't know
dude,
if one influenced
I definitely,
the other.
it's crazy because when I was going back reading this time, because I haven't read this in years, I was like reading Deadpool in the voice of Ryan Reynolds, and it fit to me. Like I could like kind of pick up on it. I don't know.
I don't know if that's a good or a bad thing, because I was doing the same thing. I think when he's in a jokey mode or he's starting to make quips, I automatically defer to that voice, and I don't know if I like that.
Right.
Well, there's a lot of characters. I don't know if I can think of any in the DC realm, but there's a lot of characters that do actually work better in a team as opposed to working in their own book with the solo character.
And I don't know how much he helped as far as the action went.
Right. But you did. I mean, you threw three guys in here. You threw, Wolverine. You threw Deadpool, and you threw
Psylocke, Phantom X,
and all those who were kind of, they're down dirty and kind of.
They're all part of like the same weapons program, like Wolverine, exactly. Weapon X. What was Wade? Well, like Weapon, was he part of Weapon X or something different?
Yeah, I don't know what weapon he was, but yeah, remember that? Isn't that their common bond, the Weapon Plus program, and all done that? That's get explored in another.
Morrison's, They touch upon that in this, don't they? Okay.
Maybe.
Damn, I haven't gone through.
Very briefly,
but he did a great job, I think, in the way Claremont does of building arcs and then really building it. He's got the 4 or 5 arcs, but they all work in ways that are together and also separate. They're all and they all build to this great climax. I just thought like I can see how he says Claremont in the makeup and kind of the structure of it. It's Frank Miller and the subject material and how raw it gets.
Yeah,
and it's Grant Morrison and just how weird it gets with some
the
of like
craziness,
the Goat Mage and like the Omniversal stuff like later on, and just so like I could just see all those influences, and I think it really takes balls to take a character Grant Morrison created and really spin the yarn with him like the way he did.
Yeah. That I did really enjoy Phantom X as a character, but I think it was this run that really made me love him as a character. Like I always thought he was cool because he had the flying saucer that was like his autoimmune system that was kind of her own personality. Eva, he was always cool. Like because I remember in Morrison, like one of the first issues they introduced him in. He was like being super cocky, and he was talking like they were in this tunnel trying to fight off another weapon that had like a hive mind. And he was talking to Jean Grey. He was like, I can tell by how your pelvis is slightly tilted to a certain way that you're attracted to me and you won't turn me in. So he was such a dick, and he was so cool, but she was like, go. And, so I always thought that was cool, but this run made him so endearing and turned him into an actual character.
A lot more humility in this run.
Yes.
For sure.
Yeah.
And especially like how he's crushing on Psylocke. Like he's a lot more.
He's got a thing.
A lot more respectful with it, I guess, than saying your pelvis is at a.
Right.
We'll talk about him in the ending a little bit. I mean, it seems like all the other characters, at least very briefly, have a moral turpitude to killing this kid. He more or less just he does.
He doesn't have the emotional tie there.
He doesn't hesitate.
That was it. It made sense though, but I think about that, and I want, because I can't say the excuse that he's been tortured, because so of pretty much all those characters. Psylocke's been tortured in her own way. Warren has, Wade, Logan. But, Wade doesn't really have a personal connection to Deadpool. Only Psylocke, Wolverine, and because even Wolverine was a brief horseman of apocalypse. I think he was death in like the late 90s for a brief stint. But, I don't know. I feel like he's just more he knows what needs to be done, and he's kind of a solo character. Maybe it's because he is solo. Wade kind of seeks out relationships, even though he is like a weird dude. He loves talking to people and bonding with people. Yeah. Logan's got a history with everyone else, the X-Men, And with Phantom X, ever since he broke out, like he's been on his own pretty much just with his immune system with Ava. Like he doesn't really, we'll find out more that he does have some deeper ties later on, but at this point he's so used to being on his own. He's not, he's not been around kids that much. He doesn't have that moral compass that everybody else did. So I guess, he does, but in a way he kind of saw where their emotional ties were kind of stopping them from doing what needed to be done. So he took it upon himself.
Classic, like everybody else is fighting and getting in the way of the objective.
Right.
I'm going to do it. But then you also have I don't mean to keep going forward, but like nobody is okay with this in the end. I mean, and when they're on the ride back, I think Deadpool is the only one who has righteous indignation. And it's funny because like we were talking, you hear Phantom X and ask Deadpool or ask each other, what's the reason you joined up or whatever? And they both say the money.
Right.
But then when then Deadpool's complaining about the fact that he just smoked, Phantom X just smoked a child and nobody did anything about it. And Wolverine thinks he's a hypocrite because he knows they both joined in it for the money, but he finds out from Archangel later that he hasn't cashed a check. Yep. So I thought that was a really cool way of showing where Wade's kind of moral compass lies. And I think you had scenes with didn't Phantom X talk to his mom or had a in the next issue you see everybody's having a conversation with somebody else or going to seek solace in some type of way for what just happened. I mean, nobody is ultimately okay with it, but I don't know. I thought that was
that was a cool way of not being upfront about it. Like, for a character like Wade, who's such a wisecracking asshole, and he's a hitman. It shows that he does have a moral guide. Like he has certain standards he won't go. For as much as crazy and fucked up things that he does, like there's certain lengths he won't go. And he maybe he was looking at it. I mean, that's. Phantom X is an interesting character. He does have a moral compass, but he lives in a lot of areas of gray where everyone else is kind of like black and white a little bit. Because Deadpool and Wolverine, I guess, are looking at it like, what if someone just was like, no, they've been programmed to kill. Don't give them a second chance. That was kind of how they're approaching it with Kid Apocalypse. It was like, he can break his programming,
What did Archangel say? You can't help yourself? Because the kid's literally begging for his life. Archangel's cornered him, and he's like, I won't kill. He's like, promise. You can't help. Yeah, it's just brutal, man.
Yeah. Ask some weighty questions for a first arc. I like and the team is. I like that they're kind of this incarnation of the team was assembled specifically start off with hunting down Apocalypse. Like Warren cobbled this together because he heard some rumors of Clan Akba. Ozymandias, who I've always thought was an interesting character. He's always like a star cream trying to upsert Megatron. He fucks with Megatron or Apocalypse, but then at certain times he'll try to I'm not too familiar with Transformers, but in the movies, Starscream seemed like he's always trying to one up Megatron. And Ozymandias here even seems like he's doing that because technically Apocalypse is sleeping, I guess. And so to let him slumber, he cloned Apocalypse to try to raise his own version of Apocalypse because he had his own ideas of how he wanted to rule things. But I got lost on that rant. But but then Phantom X clones he has doubts about his decision. He clones another Kid Apocalypse and tries to raise him as a hero in the little miniature weapon plus world. So you can definitely see that shit did not sit well with him. Yeah. No, yeah. That there's layers. I show it, these characters seem like a lot of them start off very one note, but you can tell through their actions that there's weight to the things they do. And they Phantom X, you said he cloned him. He's not going to let them know he cares, but that shows that he cares. That didn't sit well with him with what he had to do.
Right. So I guess.
Go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
So I guess let's talk about the individual issues as far as what were your two guys' favorite issue and probably favorite character in the entire run in this volume 1.
I'll probably. Go on, my bad.
Go ahead.
Go
Go ahead, Lenny.
You sure? All right. I would say that I really enjoyed issue 1 because I just think for a mission statement gets you hooked right away. Had a lot of little homages and odes to like classic things that you'll love if you're a hardcore X-Men fan. But at the same time, I felt it was new enough that if people weren't so steeped in the lore, they could still get what was going on and not be too lost. Like it was a new take on like things we might have seen before. It's a really good. I don't know because
I would say
team
by the
is not
second
a
issue you knew what was going on, even if you didn't read it.
Yeah.
Issue,
In terms of characters, this team is hard just because I really love. Like they're not a powerhouse team, but how they utilize this team throughout this first arc it was like, man, I get it. You know, like they were well selected for. You know, they're not gonna. You can't just throw them in front of anybody and think that you know. Their first battle with Apocalypse, the Final Horseman, like that. I don't know who was timing it, but it lasted like 53 seconds. They got their asses handed to them in less than a minute. And
I like that. Like, the whole thing, like Remender's, they have that in the narration panel.
But also the majority of these characters, once they were the type of characters because of the Weapon X background, once they got away from the influences of the Four Horsemen, they regenerate and heal rather quickly. So yes, when they get all the pestilence going around and they're dying, but as soon as that they're away from that, they come back strong pretty quick.
Warren had to eat flesh.
Okay, he did. That's right. I didn't get the whole flesh. I didn't know that. I saw that. I like that.
Talk about that scene.
I like that scene where he's peeling the flesh off his arm.
That was so disturbing.
Is that the only thing that was on hand, or did he specifically need flesh?
He was just trying to feed him to get his weight up because he was so emaciated.
There was nothing else. There was nothing else you could have given him.
He gave him soda and Pop Rocks at first.
Soda, but
that's what he had.
And then Deadpool's a Krispy Kreme, so that was like crispy flesh there.
Yeah, he was getting nice thin layers.
Thin layers there, yeah. And it looked like
I'm like, what did he say? He's like, where did you find this? He's like, if I tell you, I promise you keep eating it. Like,
They had some great dialogue in this book. It was well paced,
but they do regenerate pretty quickly. I mean,
technically, Warren might have some sort of healing factor. Everyone has a healing factor except for Betsy. Betsy doesn't have a healing factor.
She wasn't there at that point, so
yeah,
right.
And I think they say that the Horseman's powers are only work in proximity, like the
radius.
That's what they said.
Yeah. But I mean, they got laid low though, man. It was pretty brutal there for a minute. Like, it was a very harrowing battle.
Yeah, it had you thinking like, how are they going to come back from this? It was just clever in how it was very clever and believable with how they bounced back from this. Strike force for sure. All right, so favorite character, I will give it up to. I want to say Phantom X so bad, but I think his better characterization comes on later down the line. But Warren, I was really impressed with. Like he was given so much personality in this first 4 issues alone that, like we've stated earlier in the stream, that he was such a background character, just there when they needed him. And they mentioned that in this book, like him and Logan having a conversation. He's like, look, I know you've always, I think Warren might have said it to him, but he was like, it was something along the lines that he's always been there when they needed funding, or if they needed him on this team or that team, Warren was always there. But, there's a lot of personality given to him. And I respect that to take such at the time, there was a lot of X-Men Remender could have chose from. And he wasn't even written this well in the previous X-Force series, which was kind of like that same concept. They had the dark suits and they're a strike team. But so I was to give it to Warren, Archangel.
Nice. I think for my favorite issue, I would have to be 1 or 4. I think but I'm with you, Scarpad. I think the introductions, what was it, in 3 or...
The introductions are in 2, with the background.
With the Horseman?
The one-page intro in 2, but the background's really in 3.
But I think the last page in issue 1 where you see little kid Apocalypse sitting playing with his toys is just striking. I mean, that's just you're like,
oh,
yeah, man. I mean, how can you not?
He was playing with a thing too.
Yeah, that's right.
Oh,
There's some
you're
comic
playing
on
words.
the floor that like half the cover is shown. I was trying to look at it and see what it was, but I could not identify. I was curious to see. But yeah, he's got like kids books and he's got books about war and army soldiers and the thing. It's just like it's such an innocent / like crazy image. And then I just think the last panel of issue 4, man, with the blam, the way the hold on, let me see if I can.
It was over pretty quick.
Put it up to like
Blink, you missed
Your Scarpad, I wish you were. You can't bring up the pages.
Oh, I can't.
Let me see.
Oh,
Can I
no.
show
Yeah.
Let me make it bigger there.
the blam?
Oh yes, yeah, and their expression, yeah. Beautiful artwork going on this.
But,
oh, not at all.
yeah. I just love the way they express that gunshot, and then the next thing is just
just
it's like holy shit.
Such a dope shot.
My only
too.
problem with some of the my only problem with some of the close-up artwork on Wolverine is that he looked kind of like Batman in some of the panels.
Yeah,
with the face mask.
I think a couple one of those fights he got the tips of his ears cut off, and he definitely did look like Batman.
Yeah,
the cowl.
I think
war.
he like ducked War's axe and it cut off the tips of his ears or something.
Right.
But yeah, and character, I don't know. I want to say Warren as well. I just thought the characterization was so full, thorough, and complete with him. It was just very impressive. I thought it was the best run that anybody's done on Archangel. I'll say also Psylocke was incredible. Really, the team leader. I think the glue that held it all together. Super, really.
She's a
Warren's savior of the world. Really, later on down the line, had to overcome a lot of her own dark stuff to help other people. She had to overcome her inner demons and then go take care of babysit Warren. So I just thought it was super cool, and also how I love how Opeña does the the butterfly.
Oh yeah,
I just thought that was gorgeous, man.
Yeah,
just great.
It don't get much better. Yeah, it's top tier, bro.
But yeah, I think that's probably I don't know. I'd have to choose between one.
Yeah, well,
those are solid picks. Yeah,
I'm gonna say, well, it's tough. I'm doing this because I think it's tough to rate. Like we did last week, we rated the week before we kind of rated the books and say, well, out of 5, what would you give it? I'm not gonna say that for this book because it's tough to do that because this is only one chapter of a story that is continuing. So as you say,
but it's the first arc though. How did it impact you?
Oh, pretty well.
Like, were you hooked for the ride for the rest of the ride?
Yes, I am hooked for the rest of the ride. But the ending is pretty abrupt, and you don't get to see the consequences of that. So it's tough to rate overall. I think, as I said, my favorite of the books, I'm going to say, is 3. I like 3 because you get that whole battle with the 2 and the other 3. Where you get the battle with the horsemen, you get the background on them, and some of the stuff I really enjoyed. My favorite character, I'm going to give to Deadpool, just because he went beyond my expectations of Deadpool. And this Deadpool, for me, because I haven't read too much Deadpool, is all based on the movies. So it's nice to see him reined in. Although in some of the movies, especially the last one there, I think he has a little bit more gravitas in a mission type environment. What was the one with Deadpool with the kid with him?
Yeah, that was
up against Colossus.
Yeah,
that was the second one.
Yeah.
But I liked him in this story. I thought he contributed. He wasn't just there for the jokes. The whole arm thing with the Flash was good.
He's valuable.
That was great.
And
he bought them a lot of time because Wade can take the hits. So it's like even if he's not really damaging them, he bought them a lot of time for themselves to get back on their feet and get stable.
Like every time you saw him in this comic, his face was half blown off or something.
Wait, take the hit, pretty much. All right, guys.
It's amazing.
Also, the Deadpool tent. The Deadpool tent was.
I was just about to mention that. What the fuck is the Deadpool tent?
Yeah, on a moon, bro.
That's like a normal thing because I'm like you, Scarpad. I don't read a lot of Deadpool, but that was a cool little gadget.
Did he pull that out of his shorts? Or what is that?
He breaks the fourth wall, bro.
He made a tent out of?
After getting kicked a half mile across the
And
moon.
I can understand why the X-Men regenerate, but their costumes get blown to shit, and they regenerate too.
Not all of them.
Deadpool's dead. Deadpool.
They make their costumes a little bit more sturdy because they
Yes.
take into account that they're going to be taking blows.
Kind of creepy if you're inside the Deadpool tent with Deadpool. I don't know. I get kind of worried about that. Wouldn't want to be in that place. But yeah,
It would have been funny if Wade had brought up like, don't tell them what we did in the tent. Like, and everyone's like, what you guys do in the tent?
Either that, you get one of these Austin Powers type scenes there in the tent.
That would have been hilarious.
Like a gold member there. But
yeah, they missed the comedic opportunity.
Overall, a good read. I want to read the next volume. As I said, that's like 7 volumes, isn't it? And
yeah,
it's an interesting story. So, well, I mean, we can rate it if you want. I mean, I would give it overall, if I'm going to rate it based on all 4 issues, as a kickoff for a series, I'm going to give it like out of 5. I'm going to give it a solid 4. I think it kicks off the series really well.
Yeah,
it gets you interested in reading the rest of it to see where the rest of it's going to go. But I think even if you didn't read the rest of it, even if you stopped here, it's self-contained enough that you get a sense of closure for what this particular chapter was going to do. I know they moved off in other directions in the other books.
They completed their mission.
Yeah,
stopped Apocalypse.
Right, and then they go on to a next mission. So yeah, I think it's a good, especially when you consider it's only 4 issues. It's a good opening chapter.
Packs a lot, and this was when people were still pushing for, they still do that now. They're a little bit more lax, but around this time they were aiming for 6 issues an arc, six issues an arc. So it's cool for Remender to kind of like break away from that pacing, especially at Marvel. So
they still want that because that's a good size for a trade paperback. That's why they want to go for 6 issues. Yeah. Most of the stuff is 6 issues now, but we'll see. What about you, Steve?
I was surprised by your rating.
Your rating.
5 out of 5. Yeah, for sure. I mean, definitely a huge turning point in my comic readership. Really put me on to one of my favorite writers, and there was no looking back. So I'm mad that I wasn't as I was into comics and I was reading, but I was not a Wednesday Warrior back in 2011 at all. I was reading a lot stuff from the previous decade and catching up. So I'm mad I missed it when it was out, but I'm happy that I caught up on it now. And really, I encourage anybody watching this to go really read anything by Rick. The guy always has great stories, gritty, surreal.
Is he doing anything now?
Just a really talented writer. Always has great artists with him. Great artists always want to work with the guy.
What's the last thing he did?
He did Righteous Thirst for Vengeance.
Yeah, I don't think I've seen that.
Righteous Thirst for Vengeance was one of the best books of last year. I definitely encourage you to get a trade. It's almost
Scumbag.
Without words. Scumbag, Black Science. What is it? 7 to
Eternity. That's another opinion.
Tokyo Ghost.
Low is an underrated one.
Crazy.
Deadly Class.
I think his Captain America run is great. His Venom run is great if you want to go to Marvel. He hasn't written anything.
Venom.
Yeah. But
he has like 2 or 3 issues that he wrote of the Atom. Maybe it was like one arc of he wrote. It was the All New Atom. And I think he wrote like 2 fill-in issues of Booster Gold.
Nobody read those.
I have the All New Atom arc, but
I gotta check that out. I had no idea.
Yeah. Those are like the only 2 books he ever wrote for DC.
Are they using those for the Booster Gold movie? Probably not.
Probably not.
I never know what's going to inspire people. I didn't know he was an artist before all this. Did you know that? He was an animator.
Yep.
Yeah, he worked on Fantasia, apparently.
Fantasia. Was he an Iron Giant?
How old is this guy?
Yeah, Stan Iron Giant. Yeah, he said that in some interview. This was in the late 90s, I think. He said Don Bluth, the big Disney legend, set up studios, I think, in wherever Remender was living in California.
What if he worked on the redo of Fantasia? Sounds to me that he probably did that. Because Fantasia came out.
The '90s animated cartoon.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Oh, okay.
Yeah, but he said I don't know what exactly version, but he said he was at Don Bluth Studios and he worked on Fantasia, Iron Giant, something else. But
Titan AE. I think I might have
maybe
seen.
Titan AE. Yeah, could be. That was all.
I wonder if that has something to do with why he always gets great artists, because
he understands that perspective, that visual perspective. Because comic books is it's mostly a visual perspective, I would say, or a visual medium. And of course, the writing is important as well, but it's a fine balance with comic books, and I think he understands that. So that's why he's one of the greats.
Yeah, absolutely. It's unfortunate we'll never see him on the Big Two again, I don't think. But
yeah.
I
don't know. Then again, I like when these guys get out and can do their own thing and do their own characters and maybe
which he can, but he
create their own IPs, which is nice. I mean,
no, absolutely, and it just because there's he had such great ideas.
Oh, sorry. You look at a guy like Jason Aaron, who's been writing for Marvel for how long, and now that he's finally, and I mean, he kind of came up doing with the War One and Scalp and stuff, but I'm glad that he's going back to and Once Upon a Time at the End of the World has been great. I'm glad that some of these guys are kind of getting out from under the boot heel of the Big Two and explore,
But there's with Remender, there's just some. Oh, my bad. I was lagging.
No, we got you.
Oh, all right. There's something about the energy that Remender had. Even though he does better of Image, I just it was very inspiring. I wish people would do more stuff like that within the Big Two if it's allowed. But they do. You're always going to get a more pure version of a creator on a Image creator-owned book. So I respect that. But I always appreciate when they can bring their energy to
existing characters. Yeah.
Yes. So I guess I'll get into my rating real quick. I'm gonna go ahead and give this bad boy a 5 as well. I think it is, if you're a big X-Men fan, or just it speaks to you on all those levels. If you're you're just a big comic fan, and I think it nails all that for you. It's got great art, witty dialogue, quick story, greatly paced. It's a new coat of paint that on something we've seen before. But that's not a bad thing. I had to sit with that for a second. I was like, wait a minute.
Not backwards much lately.
Yoda, I am. But it's really well done. And you don't see that too often, where it's something brand new, but at the same time feels like you're like, I know this. I'm familiar with this. I respect that. Like I said, when you can do something with pre-existing characters, make something with years of continuity and history feel fresh, that's really cool. And that's what Remender does with this. So 5 out of 5 all day.
All right. Very good. Hey, last thoughts, final thoughts before we wrap this up. I want to say thank you for Stu to come on.
Thank
our
you.
First guest
for having you on.
Won't be our last. Maybe, I don't know. We'll see. We'll get some more people on here.
Come back.
As it matters. He'll come back.
I'd love to come back on this. Love to come back.
Maybe we will actually read a Dr. Doom book or something. We can do that.
Hey, I'd be down.
We'll have to do the whole book of Doom. It's 1,000 pages. Do it in a week. And I got that. I haven't read it. It's up in the big omnibus.
You got it. It's a fantastic volume. Yeah.
I can't even pick it up.
Great.
I tried.
Is it really 1,000 pages?
It's about that. I tried picking up to read it, and I dropped my balls. It hurt. And I'm never gonna pick it up again. It's too heavy. But if I could read it, I would. I'll just get the digital version of it. Some of those books.
You're gonna have to get a Foley system or something for that.
I had one of these cheap ass fucking Walmart bookcases. I put the Book of Doom in it. The whole thing collapsed. Well, along with everything else.
Story.
That was the true story. I got pictures.
Wow.
It collapsed my whole bookcase.
Didn't want no problem.
Doom said this is.
That's a big. I mean, I had some big ones in there. To be
Doom.
fair, I had the Batman Road to what was that arc where the thing blew up there? No Man's Land. I had No Man's Land Volume 1 and 2. And these things are big, so it was. And then I just put the Book of Doom up there and went, boop, fell on the floor.
Doom will not have that.
Yeah, it's serious.
It's
that's awesome, I guess.
a serious book. All right, so thank you, Stu, for coming on. Thank you, Link, for recommending yet another Rick Remender. We're gonna make sure the next one you pick isn't Rick Remender. I don't think it's going to be. You told me what it's gonna be. And
oh no, I was gonna say, are you picking the book?
I am picking the next one, baby.
All right.
What we got?
Trying to show some
zoom up on that. Yes. Oh yeah. Oh, there we go. Bacon slices.
Oh yeah, there is.
Bacon slices. They're
I hope
beautiful.
That grows.
It's beautiful and grotesque at the same time.
Hope that grows back. I think I saw.
He looks actually better than Wolverines.
It looks like a little packet of sauce down there too, underneath.
Soy sauce. Yeah.
Look at that. Look at the book. Yeah. It looks like a packet of something there. Mayonnaise or something. I don't know what that was. All right. So join us back in a week. We're gonna do a book picked by me, and we're finally gonna take our first foray, boys and girls, into DC. Finally.
What's the book?
The book is The Order of the World, Arkham City by Dan Waters. Came out in 2021.
I wanted to check this out.
Yet another book where Arkham Asylum, Arkham Asylum can't keep nobody in it. So
Dani, I like her.
So
that looks like the Grant. That looks like it's got Grant Morrison Arkham Asylum vibes to it.
Arkham, yeah, it does. Yeah. That cover definitely reminds me. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's got Dani, it's got Dave Stewart in coloring. Dan Waters is the writer, and it came out 2021. So that's our next book, The Order of the World, Arkham City. So be here for that. I'm gonna force him to read a DC. It's gonna.
I've read some DC. I'm more Marvel. I'm very more steeped in Marvel, but I've read plenty of DC.
It was almost gonna be Batman '89. I haven't read that yet either.
I haven't read that. I read the first issue. I meant to. I took my break shortly after it.
Yeah. So I said, well, I want some a little bit more heft. So I went with that.
A little more edge.
A little more edge.
Dan Waters is a great writer.
Something to talk. Something we can talk a little bit more about. So that's what we're gonna do. And next week. Until then, anybody else have anything coming up? Now we got coming up on Saturday night. We got Dylan's horror show, the final one for the month, actually. Maybe not the final one for him, but I'm done I won't be back for 2 weeks on my show, and there's nothing coming up this weekend. Happy Memorial Day. You guys get out, don't read anything, get out, enjoy the world, or read a book outside, or do something, And
there you go. Read a book outside.
Read a book outside. Bring your Kindle out there. Read a book out there. But until then, we'll see you next Thursday. And
so check out Verno's show tonight.
That's right. Tonight, Verno's show. Yeah, Blood Splatter Chatter. I can't even pronounce that. You want me to watch it?
From Hell. His first movie review for the
Drag Me to Hell.
Yes, from hell. Damn it. Not the Johnny Depp one.
Not Drag Me from Hell, but to Hell. Sam Raimi.
Drag Me from Hell would be fitting.
I will be in the chat, and I will be putting some really nasty stuff in the chat. So make sure you're there to watch that tonight. I want to thank everybody for coming in. Thank you once again, Stu. Really got me out of a bind because I'm not the most knowledgeable Marvel guy, but I'm learning.
Thanks
Great to have you on, brother.
I'm trying,
Pleasure.
And we'll catch you guys next week.
I'm glad you enjoyed it, Scar.
I did. 4-0. I will read another volume at some point. We gotta get back to Black Science too. I want to get back to that. So we may continue.
Yeah.
Hi guys.
Thanks again, pal.